Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Ridding. I'm an amateur. I consider myself an amateur student in law. I created this channel so I can share my journey of education on trying to learn and understand Canadian law in Canada. In part because I'm hoping that if I do things right, other people can benefit from that. But more importantly, if I do make a mistake, I will. If I ever make a mistake, I will absolutely own that mistake. But then at the same time, hopefully others can learn from that mistake and save themselves a lot of time and heartache. So today, because I've been doing some videos on jurisdiction, I want to talk about establishing jurisdiction for the officer. So I've already done a video on what jurisdiction is. I did a video that explains jurisdiction, how you establish or how the jurisdiction of the court is established. Like how the jurisdiction of the court is established, jurisdiction can be established for the officer in the act of legislation itself. So if you're working with the Highway Traffic Act, for instance, police constables, and I believe the Ministry of Transportation are cited in the Highway Traffic Act. For me today, I am focused again on the Provincial Offenses Act. It's just using the one act predominantly because this is the act I'm most predominantly in these days. So I'm going to consistently refer to it as the example. And of course, it is from the perspective of Ontario. So I'm going to do a share screen. And again, I do apologize. I'm not the most technologically advanced here. So these are going to be very simple videos. But when you are charged under and you've established that charge will bring you to the Provincial Offenses Act. The Provincial Offenses Act is act of legislation that's full of rules. Okay, they're often outside of the court referred to as sections, but inside the court they're referred to as rules. Hence, it would make sense because it's the rule of law. So you follow the rule of law. These are the rules, and in court they call them the rules. Out of court we call them sections. So, but I'm getting in the habit of calling them the rules in and out of court because it gets very confusing when you keep switching back and forth. And the reality is that I think it's important to start learning the language that they use in the courts, because the better you understand the language, the better you will be able to present your argument. Now, in the Provincial Offenses Act, I've already jumped ahead here in the upper right-hand corner. This is a downloaded copy. You will see the word officer. So I've already jumped ahead in the interpretation. We have officer coming up quite a few times. So you have police officer, and police officer means a chief of police or other police officer, but does not include a special constable. So it does not include a special constable or a bylaw enforcement officer. Why? Because further down here, provincial offenses officer means a police officer, a constable appointed pursuant to any act. So there is an act of legislation out there called the Special Constables Act. I may have the title slightly wrong, but I know it's out there, and I'm paraphrasing if I haven't got it right. So that's where the special constable gets their authority under the on the Special Constables Act. So that constable is appointed pursuant to that act. A municipal law enforcement officer, referred to in subsection 101 of the Municipal Act. So a municipal law enforcement officer is what we would refer to as a bylaw officer. A bylaw enforcement officer of any municipality, which is 1D, so right here, and then an officer, employee, or agent of any municipality or of any local board of any municipality whose responsibilities include the enforcement of a bylaw, an act, or a regulation under the act while in the discharge of his or her duties. So they have to be an officer or an employee and an agent of a municipality of any local board of the municipality. And I'm slowing that down because here's the thing: a lot of public health officers, folks, and let me rephrase that, a lot of public health inspectors work for not the municipality, not a board for the municipality. They work for, well, in my area, the county. they're not part of the municipality. Therefore, they're not an employee or an agent of the municipality. They are an employee or agent of the county, and that's a distinction. These are the small distinctions that we are not made aware of. Now there is a little bit more down here. So a public health inspector, unless they get the authority from the Public Health Act under which they gain their jurisdiction, they don't have any authority under the Provincial Offenses Act. I'm being elusive there, folks. Go take a look, see where the public health inspector gets their authority from, and see if they have the authority to actually issue any charges, not orders, charges under the Provincial Offenses Act. And you might be surprised. I'm thinking reopening of Ontario. Anybody? So with that in mind, can the public health inspector, if they don't gain authority under their Public Health Act, can they get authority under this act, Provincial Offenses Officer? Well, they can under Rule F, a person designated under subsection 3. So subsection 3, you'd have to go further down. Right here, designation of Provincial Offenses Officer. So let's go to subsection 3. A designation of a Provincial Offenses Officer. A minister of the Crown may designate in writing. It has to be expressed in writing. Any person or class of persons as a Provincial Offenses Officer for the purposes of all or any class of offenses. So, in short, if you have received a charge under the Provincial Offenses Act, if that person is not the victim, okay, if the person is not the victim swearing an oath to the charge being put before the court against you, then that person has to be either, well, basically it has to be one of these characters here. And I'm using the term character because these are the roles that they play. And I kid you not, folks, this is the language of law. It is a show. They call them acts. They call them characters. I didn't make this language up. This is the language of law. So start adopting it. So they refer, and when you look at when you take a look at the case law, Roncarelli versus Duplessis, it's right there in front of your eyes. When acting in their official character, but beyond their lawful authority, the person can be held personally liable. That's one of the quotes from Roncarelli versus Duplessis. So even the courts recognize that you can be a human person with a job working for the government, and the title you hold is your character. So if the person who issues you a ticket, you need to look at what their character is. Are they under the meaning of Provincial Offenses Officer right here? Are they any of these? Are they a police officer? Are they a constable appointed by an act? Are they a municipal law enforcement officer under the Municipal Act? Are they a bylaw enforcement officer working directly for the municipality? Or are they an employee or an agent working for the municipality? They have to be working for the municipality to be the enforcer. And if they're none of those, if they're, say, a public health inspector, then does that public health inspector have authority under the act of legislation that they work under? Because the Provincial Offenses Act is not where they gain their rules. They gain their rules from a different act. The characters in this act, this is where they gain. So the Provincial Offenses Officer gains their rules from this act, the Provincial Offenses Act and the Municipal Act, and for the case of a police officer, the Police Services Act. So they may have more than one act that gives them rules that they have to follow. These are the rules. Now you know how to identify. And if you're charged under the Provincial Offenses Act, go back to my other videos that talk about the charges, and you will know what act you're charged under. So if you received an offense notice, the offense notice, it'll say at the top, under the Provincial Offenses Act. Now you know what act you're working under. Go to the act and then take a look at the characters who have the authority. Look at the characters who have the authority, which I'm showing you right here, under the Provincial Offenses Act. Then take a look at who wrote your ticket. If the person who wrote your ticket doesn't have authority under this act, then take a look at their character and determine what acts give them that title, that character, and then go to those acts and take a look at those acts and see if those acts have rules that give them authority under this act. And if the acts don't give them authority, then ask that character if they have a written designation from a minister of the crown to make them a provincial offenses officer. I know there's a lot of repetition in words here, and you may have to watch this video more than once, but hopefully it does help you better understand how jurisdiction gets established. So now we've done establishing jurisdiction of the court, and now we've established jurisdiction of the characters who are governed under the act for which you are operating. Thank you very much. I hope this was informative for you. And if I've made any errors, please feel free to reach out to me and correct me on my errors. And I will be sure to correct them if it means having to remove the video and redoing it, or simply doing another video to correct it, depending on the severity. Thanks again, and take care.